Hello and welcome to Words of Wokism number 27, construct or construct, depending on whether you're using it as a verb or a noun. Let's do the verb first. Construct, as you're probably hearing it from the woke, especially in education, comes from constructivism, which was a learning theory that came about in reaction to the didactic way of learning and also in response to behaviorism. It's pretty ironic because they're using behaviorism a lot right now, especially the people pushing AI. They would love nothing more than to stimulate your children into having the proper response in that Skinnerian way that they did with Pavlov's dogs. So that's the behaviorist. Stimulus, response, stimulus, response. If the response is wrong, we change the stimulus until we get the right response. But we have a response in mind. We just have to tweak these. No real room for free will in there. Then for a long time, you had the idea of knowledge transfer, where teachers, professors, lecturers, parents, whomever, who had knowledge that they had acquired from other people with knowledge, books full of knowledge, or even from experiences, but they'd acquired it. Okay, it was now there. They could write it down and explain it, how they know that it is true, test it, those sort of things, or at least demonstrate that they could, repeat whatever the set of experiences were to get the same information. Like, for example, if a man and a woman get together, if you get my drift, a baby might result from that. Now, even before they had the scientific knowledge to understand that, they could make certain observations and see that that seemed to be a pretty much recurring phenomenon. So they learned that this through experience this happened, and they didn't really have to go so far to explain it to other people because they had had the same experience. So they weren't constructing it, they were more observing it, right? In fact, it's probably more useful to say that knowledge was either transferred from one knowledgeable person or book or entity to those who didn't have the knowledge through teaching or some kind of transfer, or it was observed and then acquired. Constructivism says that knowledge is not acquired, it's constructed. We make our own knowledge through our experiences. So through those observations and our experiences, that we were constructing knowledge all by ourselves. And it is largely a reaction to the idea that, people should be taught or can be taught things. A common misunderstanding regarding constructivism is that instructors should never tell students anything directly. Instead, they should allow them to construct the knowledge for themselves, student-led learning, student-directed education. It's confusing a theory of pedagogy, teaching, with a theory of knowing. Sound familiar? The woke one is the theory of knowing. Constructivism assumes that all knowledge, I'm reading now, by the way, in case you're wondering, it assumes that all knowledge is constructed from the learner's previous knowledge, regardless of how one is taught. Thus, even listening to a lecture involves active attempts to construct new knowledge. Vygotsky's social development theory is one of the foundations for constructivism, if you want to go look into it more. But basically, they took the pedagogical theory that learning is an active process that involves the learner, where the learner is engaged with learning and is not just a passive recipient of knowledge. And I think most of us would hear that and go, that makes sense. Okay. But it's very different from a theory of knowing. It is very different from saying all knowledge was constructed inside of me. Everything I know, I constructed out of things I already knew. And then through my personal experiences. That's where things like my truth comes from. Different ways of knowing. That was another word of wokeism that I did. Different ways of knowing, which of course allows for individual perceptions to create new knowledge that no one else can disagree with or test and say, that doesn't add up. Doesn't add up. I constructed it. It's mine. It's just as valid as yours. But I got mine from reading lots and lots of books on the subject and spending, 10 years studying it in depth and working with experts in the field and stuff. Where did you get it? Well, I listened to a TED Talk, and then combined with things I already knew about that subject, I decided that X was true, and that is my truth. That's the knowledge I've constructed about this subject. Believe it or not, you can get all kinds of gender theories out of that. Where do you think all the many different new kinds of genders have come from? Somebody constructed that knowledge. Well, I'm aware of this kind of gender. Oh, you are? Okay, well, that's definitely equally valid to scientific observation of the sex binary because you constructed it. So, constructivism in the woke world is what allows people to just make shit up. I mean, for lack of a better way to put it, they can make things up, call it their truth, call it, a different way of knowing, because they're taking constructivism into a way of knowing, a theory of knowledge and knowing, not learning. And there you have it. Then there's the noun construct, which you hear all the time. Gender is a social construct. Is it? Gender itself? Gender used to be a synonym for sex. I think they just adopted it as a synonym for sex because it sounds softer than sex. Back in the day when people didn't want to say, "What's your sex?" They would just say, "What's your gender?" But they meant the same thing. Gender just sounds a little less sexual. Doesn't conjure up images of gonads. Okay? So it morphed, didn't it, into this other thing. Gender is a social construct, which probably came from gender roles are social constructs, which is true to a large degree. Not completely true. I'd say it's like maybe 90% true. Because that other 10% is biological imperative. I mean, let's face it. We have certain constructs around gender roles about, which kind of people we would, expect to see doing certain things like being soldiers on the front line or, being NFL football players and so on that really align with reality and physical traits that, men are different from women and physical strength and certain aptitudes. So, what clothes we wear and our hairstyles and all that is socially constructed. But just reacting, if you're a woman walking down the street, 2:00 in the morning, alone, and you see a man cross the street, start walking towards you, your fear of him is not socially constructed. That's biological. That goes back all the way. That goes back all the way. That's grounded in some kind of deep, deep understanding at a cellular level that you might be in danger. So, no, that's not socially constructed. And yet, that aligns with our gender roles of women, needing a little more protection, let's say, when they're out at 2:00 in the morning, the man. Not that the man doesn't need any. I'm just saying that's the 10% that's not socially constructed. That's very, very real. Same thing with, in my personal opinion, why women aren't in certain kinds of careers that are almost impossible to do if you are planning to ever be pregnant, nursing, or, raising a very small child, which is still something by and large that more women not only want to do, but are able to do. Women certainly are the only ones who can get pregnant and do the nursing part, if that's what you want to do. But it's a rare guy that wants to, like, I'll stay home with the infants and you go back to work. You want to say that's socially constructed? I don't think so. It might be socially constructed to say a man has to go back to work and provide for his family and a woman, has to stay home. That would be a social construct of a gender role. But it's not completely a social construct because it does align to some biological reality. But what they did was they removed the word roles from the conversation. And it's just gender is a social construct, meaning male or female. And that is how you get goofy crap like your son likes dolls. He is a girl. Your daughter likes to play hardball baseball instead of softball, or likes to watch it on TV or whatever, plays with trucks. She is a boy. And that's because gender is socially constructed. The only reason you think that she's still a girl because she likes those things is because you've socially constructed that, what a boy is or what a girl is. No. I think you're the one doing that, actually, ironically. You are literally socially constructing, as you're busy telling me that gender is a social construct, you're socially constructing this brand new thing based on gender stereotypes, gender roles. Very backwards ones, I might add. So it's easy to get turned around, isn't it? Like, wait, which part's the social construct? That women have long hair and wear dresses, or that people who like to have long hair and dresses are women? It's the former. It's the former that's a social construct. The other one, that's just mental illness. That's mental illness. That's not a social construct. That's a mental illness. And I mean, I'm not saying every cross-dresser is mentally ill. There are literal drag queens who know perfectly well that they're men and they do it for, fun and profit in adult settings. And they know perfectly well they're men. They're not actually women. They're men dressing up as women. They're not mentally ill. That's just something that they do. You can agree with it or disagree with it, whatever. Once they start wanting to do it in front of little kids, then we might have a mental illness issue. But yeah, that's the thing. Taking the word roles out of it and saying that gender is a social construct, that's where I think a lot of people are getting confused. And that's the woke thing. That's the woke way. Construct. I made knowledge in my own head about what sex is to align with my fetishes and my preferences and my phobias. Like, for example, maybe the man is actually really gay and just very, very feminine. But rather than admit that he's gay, I'm just a woman. I'm really a woman. That's what it is. I'm a woman. Because rather than challenging the social construct that men must be masculine and heterosexual, both of which would be social constructs based on real world situations and lots of observation, but they're still, to a certain degree socially constructed. Rather than challenge that, like we were doing very well for decades and decades, probably over 100 years. No, we're going to go full retro all the way back to, because it's just so aberrant for somebody who swishes and wants to have long hair and wear dresses to be a gay man crossdresser. No, I'm actually a woman. Yeah, I'm going to construct that new thing. That's the other kind of construct. That's the woke kind. So in summary, when you hear a teacher or somebody in education say they will construct their own knowledge, we're going to lead children to construct different ways of knowing or to construct their learning or whatever. You're hearing constructivism, probably bastardized from Vygotsky, probably as a cop-out for a lazy teacher who doesn't want to actually do any direct instruction, to say, look, they're constructing knowledge over there without any supervision. It's going to be great. And when you hear construct, it's probably somebody making shit up and calling it knowledge with their constructivism the constructs that they came up with, the stuff they just made up out of their own head from their own experiences and not measuring it against anything else, but equally valid, that's that. And gender is the most obvious example. So I hope that clears things up for you a little bit. And if you have further questions about it, please feel free to put them in the comments. And next time I will do mindset. And after that, I will do degrowth. Thank you to the community who voted on what should come next. You're the ones who chose construct. Hope you liked it. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.